Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Wright, and welcome to the City of Medicine Hat. I'm the MLA for the charming constituency of Cypress-Medicine Hat. It's a great honor and privilege to welcome the MLA for Brooks Medicine Hat and Premier of Alberta, the Honourable Danielle Smith, as well as Minister for Transportation and Economic Corridors, Devin Dreeshen, to our beautiful community here today. Your presence here is a testament to the importance our government places on rural Alberta and the critical economic corridors that tie our province together. Our region plays a crucial role in feeding families across Alberta and across the world. Our agricultural heartland, transportation ties, and hardworking people are what drive our province's prosperity. Minister Dreeshen, your portfolio overseeing transportation and economic corridors is pivotal to ensuring that our world-class products can make it to market efficiently, whether at home or abroad. We deeply appreciate the Government of Alberta's commitment to investing in the infrastructure that allows us to get our goods to market in a timely manner. From the cities to the rural areas, from the north to the south, investments in transportation and economic corridors will create jobs, fuel growth, and connect communities like never before. And most importantly, they are a vote of confidence in Alberta's future. So thank you again to our distinguished guests for choosing the City of Medicine Hat to make this important announcement. We're eager to hear the good news you have to share with Albertans. Thank you, and I now turn the podium over to Premier Danielle Smith.
Well, thank you, Justin, for that very kind introduction. Thank you all for being here today. You'll hear from my minister very shortly, but also I see Mayor Lindsay Clark is here as well. I don't know if you've brought any of your council members with you, but welcome to council if you're here as well. Hi, there's council. Nice to see you. So thanks to everyone for joining us here today, and I do want to thank Volker Stevin for hosting us as well, and a thank you, of course, to Devin Dreeshen, our Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors, for making the trek down to this beautiful city to highlight the investments that we are making in transportation, water management, and municipal infrastructure. And I'm always pleased to talk about Budget 2024, including important investments such as transportation, water management, and municipal infrastructure that I will be talking about today. As the economic engine of Canada, it's encouraging that our economy is expected to remain strong in 2024. As part of that strength comes from drawing newcomers from across Canada and from around the world. In the 12 months prior to October, Alberta's population rose by about 195,000 people. It's the highest annual rate since the early 1980s. So transportation networks and economic corridors must expand to keep pace with Alberta's economy and population. And we're ensuring that they can through Budget 2024, our responsible plan for a growing province. The Transportation and Economic Corridors Capital Plan invests more than $8.1 billion over 3 years to design, build, and maintain the roadways and bridges that we count on every day. And we're putting that money to good use by improving traffic flows and supporting investment in economic corridors across the province. The result will be faster, safer travel for families and extra capacity for business so that they can be as ambitious as they want. It's critical that Alberta businesses and industry can get their products to market across the province, across the country, the continent, and the world. And it all starts with road infrastructure. As I'm sure you can imagine, I spend a lot of time on Alberta's roads, and so I get a first-hand look at many of these roads and intersections through all the phases of construction. And I'm pretty sure I can, and all of us can, make a few suggestions for Minister Dreeshen on areas that we can have improvement. But he spends a lot of time on the road too, and he's pretty on top of it. And on that note, I am happy to share some good news for businesses and residents here in Medicine Hat and the surrounding region. Budget 2024 includes funding over the next 3 years to twin 46 kilometers of Highway 3 between Taber and Burdett. Major construction is expected to start this year. We're also investing in the engineering work to prepare for twinning the remaining 169 kilometers of Highway 3 between Medicine Hat and the BC boundary. When it's done, this will be a big boost for everyone, especially local agribusinesses. Here in southeastern Alberta, Budget 2024 also includes funding for engineering work for grade widening along 55 kilometers of Highway 41 between Highway, between Highway 1 and 20 kilometers south of Elkwater. But it's not just new and improved roads. We're also investing to extend the lifespan of existing infrastructure through maintenance and renewal province-wide. This is about getting full value from past investments while creating and preserving jobs in trades and construction. But transportation and economic corridors doesn't only focus on the roads that we use every day. That's why we are also here to announce investments for water management infrastructure that provide irrigation and flood mitigation so that communities will be better protected in the event of extreme events. And with the province facing the critical risk of severe drought this year, these investments are all the more important, as are the capital grants for municipal water and wastewater infrastructure so that Albertans can rely on access to clean drinking water and effective wastewater services. Municipal governments understand local conditions better than anyone, and they'll get the resources to act on their residents' priorities. So the situation is clear. Albertans need safe and efficient roads, highways, and bridges. They need new and upgraded water infrastructure. They need more so that they can do more, and we will provide it. We'll invest in public services and the transportation infrastructure and networks that families and communities rely on, and we'll do it in a fiscally responsible way without leaving increased debt to the next generation, without depleting the province's savings, and without subjecting Albertans to the same old cycle of painful ups and downs in spending. Consistency is as much of a virtue as prudence. And we're also using both to build a stronger and financially sustainable province, from transportation to healthcare to education. This year's budget is another step in the right direction. And with that, I will hand it over to Minister Devin Dreeshen, who has more to share about specific projects and initiatives. Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Premier. It's great to be here in Medicine Hat, and great to see Reeve Dan Hamilton here as well. And obviously to focus on this year's provincial budget and how transportation and economic corridors is helping to build Alberta, and just at a very high level picture of transportation economic corridors portion in this year's $73 billion provincial budget. We do have a 3-year capital plan of over $8 billion, which works out to about $2.7 billion per year. And that's for planning, design, engineering, land acquisition, and the cost of actually building the roads and bridges and infrastructure here in the province. And I would like to start just to talk a little bit about Highway 3, because the last time I was here in Medicine Hat, I was talking about Highway 3, and how it will be broken up to into 8 sections. And I know there are some in this room that maybe thought politicians would just talk about the twinning of Highway 3 and it would never actually get accomplished. But I'm happy to say that the tender has been accepted, and we'll actually see construction happening this year, which would be fantastic, and then hopefully be completed by next year between Taber and Burdett, that 46-kilometer stretch, that first part of that. Very important highway twinning with a total cost of $260 million, but $170 million of the total twinning is actually in this year's 3-year capital plan. And obviously, you know, with Highway 3 being such an important economic corridor, as Premier mentioned, connecting Saskatchewan goods to BC and vice versa, it was actually one of the 9 applications that the province of Alberta put into the Federal National Trade Corridor program. And unfortunately, Alberta, we've been 0 for 9 in the applications in that program. And then just a few weeks ago, Minister Guilbeault, the federal minister, said that there will be no more funding for roads by the federal government, which actually obviously would have had huge concerns for provinces as well as First Nations, with the constitutional obligation of the federal government building roads within First Nations. The Liberals, since those comments by Minister Guilbeault, actually tried to walk back those comments. But then the clarifying words were, well, there'll just be no more funding for big projects. But unfortunately, that is the National Trade Corridor Fund, which is ending this year. And there's lots of question marks of what's going to happen in the upcoming April 16th federal budget. But obviously, actions speak louder than clarified words. So we are going to be watching that budget very closely to see if that actually will be renewed. And just recently in Montreal, at the transportation ministers of all the different provinces and territories and federal government, I actually advocated that the National Trade Corridor Fund should be renewed and also matched with the same commitment of funding that the National Transit Fund program has federally, which is $3 billion a year. The National Trade Corridor Fund had $400 million a year, but that was an ask that I had and actually was echoed by other provinces. But again, we'll see what happens in the upcoming April 16th federal budget. But back to our budget and the over $8 billion in 3 years in capital projects. Of that, we've also added $151 million over 3 years for 56 new engineering projects to proceed with detailed end design. And many of those projects are located along economic corridors like Highway 3 as well as Highway 686 between Peerless Lake and Fort McMurray. And a little closer to home here, Highway 1 and Range Road 264 overpass, which will support the new de Havilland Canada Aviation Manufacturing Facility in Wheatland County. So our capital investment includes over $30 million over 3 years in new funding to support the replacement of aging bridges across the province, and especially here in southern Alberta. There are many, many small span bridges that are nearing their end of life, and many could be converted to culverts. And we are going to be working with municipalities to make sure that this new $30 million gets spent wisely in bridges that are nearing their end of life. And we're also protecting our valuable water resources with $312 million over 3 years for water management and flood mitigation, including the Springbank Offstream Reservoir Project. And we're also continuing to provide over $500 million in grant funding to municipalities through our water and wastewater programs to help ensure reliable access to clean drinking water. Now, regarding capital maintenance and renewal, funding over the next 3 years, it'll include $300 million in new funding, which will help extend the life of our existing road and bridge network, which is 64,000 lane kilometers here in the province, as well as 5,000 bridges. So we're also providing an extra $30 million over 3 years to the Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Program, or lovingly called STIP, by municipalities. We know funding through this program is critical to support municipalities, and STIP funding allows rural municipalities to maintain and improve local roads, bridges, and other key infrastructure. And this program was nearing its end, but Budget 24 actually renewed its commitment, and so municipalities know that it will continue on. And we're also continuing our commitment to support light rail transit projects in Edmonton and Calgary. Our previous provincial commitment of $3 billion, of which $1.53 billion is for the Calgary Green Line LRT, as well as $1.47 billion for Edmonton, with an additional $43 million in new provincial funding for Calgary's Blue Line LRT extension that will connect downtown Calgary to the airport. So in addition to supporting Calgary's LRT projects, our government is providing $237 million over 3 years to Calgary for infrastructure around the Calgary Rivers District and Events Center to help revitalize Calgary's downtown, with another $30 million earmarked for a public community arena. And then going up Highway 2 into Edmonton, we are providing $226 million in capital grant funding over 3 years in support of 4 critical local infrastructure capital projects: the 50th Street grade separation of the CPKC tracks, the Yellowhead Trail improvements, the Twilliger Drive expansion, as well as the Ray Gibbon Drive project near St. Albert. So in other parts of Alberta, we are supporting, in my world, in Red Deer Regional Airport in Innisfil-Sylvan Lake, the expansion project for that airport of $29 million over the next 2 years. And this investment will help the airport attract new passengers and cargo services to the region, as well as $130 million in Highway 11 twinning between Sylvan Lake and Rocky Mountain House, as well as $8 million to support the upgrading of the Ochese Road, which leads into the Ochese First Nation from Clearwater County. And then all the way up north, in northern Alberta, we are providing $6 million in funding to improve access to Fox Lake, to rebuild the critical infrastructure that was damaged in last year's wildfire, as well as $28 million for Highway 40 twinning south of Grand Prairie, and $97 million for Highway 881 between Lac La Biche and Highway 63 just south of Fort McMurray. So there's a lot in Budget 24, and I could go on and on and on, but I won't. But I will leave you with this, that together all of these strategic investments will strengthen our economy and will help support the high quality of life for all Albertans, and the province of Alberta is proud to lead and work with municipalities to build Alberta. And with that, thank you very much, and I'd like to invite Rael Durand, the Vice Chair of AMTA, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Dreeshen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here today. On behalf of the Alberta Motor Transport Association, I would like to thank Premier Smith, Minister Dreeshen for coming to Medicine Hat to highlight the significant investments in the province's roads and bridge infrastructure. For those who don't know the AMTA, the AMTA is a not-for-profit advocacy and safety training association that serves as the voice, standard, and a resource for the commercial transportation industry in Alberta. We serve over 18,000 members across the province. You just need to pay attention during your travels around town or when you're on the highway to realize how ever-present our industry is. We are everywhere, all the time, delivering the goods Alberta families need, from the food to fuel to the wide range of consumer goods we rely on for day-to-day life. At its heart, our industry is about connecting our province's goods to markets and Albertans to opportunities. We may be the drivers, but we're the builders. Through our work, we're building communities, we're building the economy. Every day, on just about every road and highway in the province, we're building a stronger, more prosperous Alberta. Nearly 52% of Alberta's GDP moves on the back of a truck, so every dollar invested in our roads and bridges pays off many times over. AMTA is grateful to the Government of Alberta for the historic, and really there's no other word for it, $8.1 billion investment, whether it's twinning Highway number 3, twinning Highway number 11, or safety and road improvements on Highway 8881. Budget 2024 will make not only our jobs safer and more efficient, but also the travel of Albertans and visitors alike. I'd like to thank Premier Smith and Minister Dreeshen making today's announcement a reality. This government is a proven supporter and partner of the commercial transportation industry. Thanks to its foresight and commitment, AMTA's members can continue working behind the wheel around the clock to keep Alberta's supply chains rolling. With these critical investments, the road ahead is to a stronger, more prosperous Alberta is looking clear. Thank you very much, and I'd like to invite Scott Emerson to the podium.
Thanks, Rael. My name's Scott Emerson. I'm the Vice President for Volker Stevin Highways, and we're very honored to host this event. Thank you, Premier Smith and Minister Dreeshen, MLA Wright, for joining us, along with many members of the municipalities. Medicine Hat, Cypress County is here, so thank you very much all for coming. Today's announcement is great news for communities, for businesses across our province. Volker Stevin Highways and our colleagues across the highway maintenance industry really do appreciate the significant investment that the government of Alberta is making through Budget 2024 to maintain and extend the life of Alberta's highways, roads, bridges, and all of the infrastructure that you see as you make your daily drive. Volker Stevin is responsible for maintaining over 18,000 lane kilometers, which put another way is about 30-some-odd% of Alberta's roads and bridges across the province. So we know firsthand the challenges and the complexities of trying to prioritize and fund the maintenance of that complex of a network, We're a very, very proud organization that takes a lot of pride in what we do. So whether it's Southern Alberta, whether it's our Central Alberta operations, we do some maintenance in Edmonton. We are very, very good partners with the province. They are a very good partner with us, and we take a lot of pride in that. The 330 employees across Volker Stevin all have that same sense of pride, and the men and women that get in these vehicles behind me at all hours, in the worst of conditions that none of the rest of us would ever consider going out in, they feel a great sense of pride in terms of making sure everybody gets home safely. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank them, because without them, Alberta does not keep moving. And while the safety of the traveling public and of our highway maintenance crews is our top priority, maximizing the lifespan of highway infrastructure is equally important to us and our industry partners. And for that, I am very pleased, as they would be, to see the government's continuing investment in projects that support safe and efficient travel across the province. So thank you again, Premier, Ministers, for your ongoing support in investing in Alberta's transportation network.
Okay, we now have some time for questions from the media. So we're gonna start with reporters here in the room and then move to the phone lines. Please state your name and outlet. And just a reminder that we're gonna be doing one question, one follow-up. So first question, please.
Hi there. Hello. Welcome.
Hi.
Colin Gallant from the Medicine Hat News. Just tracking back a little bit to Highway 3, I'm sure people will be very interested to hear about the potential schedule for future phases, and also might be a bit technical, but the terminus here at Medicine Hat, the junction of 1 and 3 has been discussion of a functional corridor study for about 10 years. What would that look like? Are we talking about a ring road in the future?
No, great. Thank you for your question. With Highway 3, yeah, it will be into 8 sections, and the Taber to Burdett will be the first, just because it's engineered, it's ready to go. The tender has already been out. The other 7 sections are all in various stage of design and planning. So as we're still developing a lot of kind of the tougher, the bookends of Highway 3, of exactly how it would work around Medicine Hat, and then obviously by the BC border. So we're still in the planning, developing stages for the bookends of Highway 3, but the middle sections, the middle 5 sections, 6 sections, are going to probably be completed before the ends.
Okay. And Highway 41, we're seeing some widening, which is probably needed about 40, 50 years ago. But the issue of the Port of Wildhorse, where is that at? I know the Premier discussed this with officials in Montana sometime. Montana's improving the road on the other side. You're improving the road on this side. The federal governments are in charge of the border. What can we do here?
Well, I saw LeVar Payne last night, the former MP for the area, and he was such an advocate for having a 24-hour border crossing. We signed a joint letter, myself and Governor Giannaforte, to our respective federal counterparts, asking for an opportunity for us to co-locate, because if you can expand the hours and we can have the American and the Canadians at the same spot, then you might be able to ensure that you've got the safety aspects and the backup. And so that's the proposal that we have on the table. And since we'll begin the process of upgrading that thoroughfare, I think it makes a stronger case for us to make sure that we've got more opportunity for that border to be open. So I have a meeting with one of my federal counterparts, Francois-Philippe Champagne, on Saturday. There's 1,000 things we need to talk about, and I'll ask for his advice on the best way to move this one forward as well.
Okay. Next question, please.
It's Jesse Gill with Chat News out of Medicine Hat here. I guess the question with 41, that's just the stretch from the number 1 to the border by Elkwater there. Is that the only area that's being widened? The other stuff, I believe, is. And then when is the time frame outlook for that?
So we have a stretch from between Highway 1, so it's 55 kilometers of Highway 41 between Highway 1 and 20 kilometers south of Elkwater, but let me hand it over to Mr. Dreeshen.
Yeah, and then that's just in the designing phase right now. So once that's complete, obviously the engineering and construction dollars would have to follow. So that's just the sequencing of events.
Okay. So it's
so I think if I have this right, we've got sort of 3 phases. So there's the design and planning, and then when it moves on to the next stage, it's engineering, and then when it moves on to the final phase, it's construction. So we're in the design planning stage, and the following stage would be engineering. Have I got that right, Minister? Okay.
So do you have a ballpark approximate at this point, or not really?
Hopefully, the department's here. Hopefully we can speed it up and have construction start within 2 years, but sometimes it's kind of a year, and then you're into construction to year 3. But with someone who's standing over my shoulder, we could probably speed that up to 2 years.
Awesome. Next question, please.
He's got 2 people standing over his shoulder, because I can tell you MLA Wright has also been raising this as well. Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
We'll build it just for you.
We'll now move to the phone line. So operator, can you please put through the first caller?
Cousin Fedor, CTV. Hi there. This is for the Premier. Thanks for taking my question. Bit of a transportation related. We know that we've seen this week gas prices going up around 10 cents a liter, especially with the oil sitting below $80 a barrel, the quarter, of course, coming to an end here at the end of the month. Have you already made the decision to reinstate the provincial fuel tax on April the 1st, the same day the federal carbon tax is also increasing here around 3 cents a liter?
I'm trying to remember exactly the staging of when we implement that. I'll have to get perhaps Finance Minister Nate Horner to follow up with you. But we do, I was just talking with him about it yesterday. I think we look at the 20 days preceding the decision. And so if it has trended over 80 cents in that 20 preceding days, then we wouldn't put the additional tax on. But being that it's been under $80, then we would. But remember, it's going to be a permanent program, so that in the event that oil prices go up again above $90, we'd take the tax off completely. So that's the way the program was designed, is that when it's in that 80 to 90 zone, we want to be able to give a bit of a tax break. My minister has been very concerned about the softness of prices. You probably watched them too. I think they've gone down as low as 68. And they've gone as high as almost 81. So with that volatility, we just want to make sure that when we bring the tax back, we'll be assessing it every three months to be able to give retailers the opportunity to respond to the changing market conditions. But we'd have to follow up with you specifically on the window that he's looking at for when he would make that decision.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, thanks for that. And just to follow up, this one in regards to measles, I guess, at this point, Premier, is there any concern right now of the potential spread of measles here in the province? And is there any plans at this point for any publicly funded measles vaccines in pharmacies right now?
As I understand it, we've had one case of measles in November, and it was an imported case. So it was someone who was infected in somewhere else and then brought it into the province. So we're very pleased to see that we haven't had some of the same issues that we've heard about in other provinces. That being said, there is a slightly lower percentage of families that have chosen to get the MMR vaccine, as well as the diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus shot. I think it's down from sort of a normal range of about 78, 79% to about 72%. So not a huge drop off, but still one that is concerning. And so we want to make sure that people understand that this is available, and that we hope that they look at the risk, because the risk of consequences from measles can be very, very high. So I'm glad to see that the rates are still high and we haven't seen a problem, but it is an active discussion with our health minister about how we can make sure we get the word out so people know how to be able to get the vaccination for their kids.
Operator, can you please put through the next caller?
Rick Bell, Post Media.
Good afternoon, Premier. This is a question a bit down the highway here in Calgary. As you know, there's a petition drive to recall the mayor of Calgary. A few days ago, a piece was published by supporters of the mayor, and it took aim at a piece of provincial legislation, which is, of course, the recall legislation. And they said that it was disempowering the majority and undermining our democracy, defying democratic principles and subverting the power of the people, and that, in effect, democracy was under attack by having a recall. It's your provincial government's legislation. I know you're still looking at it if you want to make changes to it. What do you say to people who think that recall is actually undermining democracy and subverting the power of the people?
It's funny, I've heard the opposite complaint, that we've set the bar too high, and therefore those who do want to be able to recall a politician that they feel is going in a different direction than they campaigned on, it's actually too high a bar for them to be able to have a meaningful recall campaign. And so, and I'll tell you one of the things that we've seen in the act that may need to be addressed is that we have made the bar 40% of total population. So if you think about that, in a city like Calgary, that means that for a successful campaign to proceed, it would need 500,000 signatures. And I believe the mayor got 177,000 signatures in the general election. So look, I mean, if 3 times the number of people who voted for a person say that they want to reconsider it, then that seems to me to be a pretty strong expression of democracy. But it does give you an indication of just how high the bar actually is. And when I say we may have set it too high, is that it seems a little unfair that you'd have to have a petition campaign that would include everyone under the age of 18, people who are not eligible to vote because they're not citizens. It seems like a more reasonable approach would be to do 40% of the electorate. That would make a bit more sense. That being said, it's under active discussion, and we're not going to make any changes while there are any live recall campaigns going on.
And fair.
So what do you say to these people who say the whole concept of recall is bad? We shouldn't have recall at all because it's somehow undemocratic, or it's they don't want recall at all. They don't care what the signatures are. They just want the whole thing obliterated. What do you say to people who, like the people who published this, who literally are against recall, full stop? No recall.
Look,
this is actually bad.
Well, I disagree. I mean, we're not subjecting any other politician to rules that don't also apply to ourselves. This is for school board trustees, it's for municipal members of council, and it's also for MLAs. And so, again, as I said, I've heard the opposite complaint, that we've set the bar too high. But I would put it to you that part of what a recall, part of the idea behind recall is that if politicians end up doing something completely opposite that the electorate expected them to do, or they do something that they never campaigned on, and the electorate feels frustrated by that, there has to be some mechanism between a 4-year election cycle to get that issue reconsidered. So we wanted to set a high bar because you don't want the public to be recalling people for every little thing. But I think that it's an important part of democracy. I would say it's the opposite. I think giving the power to the people is an important aspect of making sure that politicians keep their word.
Okay, and we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. So operator, can you please put through the next caller?
Chris Barco, Calgary Herald.
Hi, this is a question for the Premier. Premier, today the Fort McKay First Nation and Suncor Energy announced they were signing an MOU on a prospective new oil sands lease development, an oil sands mine up in the Fort McKay region on the First Nations land. Is this a project that your government would support? Have you had any discussion with them about it?
100%. When I heard about that, I was very excited to hear about it. And I would love to see more projects like that, because I have conversations oftentimes with our First Nations partners, and one of the things they ask is, how can we do more to share revenue? And so we've been enabling those kinds of projects on pipelines in particular, or natural gas generation stations through our Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation. And so to see a proposal where a band is going to be in on the ground floor of production, it just warms my heart. I hope we can see more of that. I think it's a fantastic proposal.
Just to follow up, do you see any federal regulatory hurdles that would be problematic for this project, or provincial hurdles?
Well, I would say that the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples includes their right to say yes to resource development. And that is one of the messages that have come through loud and clear from the Indian Resource Council, as well as the National Coalition of Chiefs, is I would hope that the federal government wouldn't stand in the way of the aspiration of a First Nation to develop their own source revenue, because I think that they've signed on to a declaration that affirms that First Nations do have the right to partner in these kinds of projects, and I hope we do see more of that. We will, as you know, since I've set out an aspiration for us to, as we're working towards achieving our goal of carbon neutrality by 2050 with new technology, I've also said we should be aspirational to double our production. And so I would like to see more of these kinds of developments using best available technology, using carbon capture, using zero emissions type of energy to be able to develop them so that we can achieve that target and aspiration. So I wouldn't say that they would see any barriers from our point of view. And since we're also in alignment with the federal government on a neutral status by 2050, I would hope that we don't see any at the federal level either.
Okay, and that is all the time we have for questions today. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.